And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, you wait to tweet until after you get into at least the fourth quarter. Welcome on into the SEC Unfiltered Postgame Show. 34-24 Alabama win over Oklahoma as now the Crimson Tide punched their ticket to the next round of the college football playoff. A lot of things to discuss in this game, but real quickly, welcome on into the show. Make sure that you like the video, hit the ring notification, and of course, subscribe to the channel because we talk college football daily. We talk SEC football. We talk Oklahoma football. We're going to talk a lot more Alabama football as the Crimson Tide move on to face off against Indiana next week. So make sure that you are locked on into the channel. Make sure that also you are following us on the podcast system. Wherever you get podcast listening systems, follow us on the socials, link in the description, and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. And as always, we are proudly brought to you by our friends over at FANDUEL. Go visit FANDUEL.com/SECU. Get started today with $300 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet simply by signing on up at FANDUEL.com/SECU. Okay, so number one, before we move any further, can we all just agree as a society, as people who love college football, and more specifically, love the SEC and understand that no team in terms of Oklahoma and Alabama were snubbed at any point, that the Big Ten people and that the Notre Dame people had to eat a lot of crow because of what happened after Alabama decided to come alive in the second quarter. Okay, now that we are all on that page, what a game, what a performance, what a moment for all of those who were watching this matchup, because of now Alabama feels like they have gotten its second wind. It feels like that a lot of momentum has come their way, and a lot of things that you want to see for this team as they trend toward being a college football playoff contender, they're all there. Let's start with Alabama. Alabama down 17-0. It felt like that fourth down call was the game right there. And yes, I 100% agree with Kay and the board to go for it. Yes, the final score was 34-24. You could have gone for the field goal with Connor Talty. But at that moment, momentum still was in favor of Oklahoma. They were rolling at the right time. They were exceptional on third down conversions. They were moving inside of the red zone. They were able to capitalize on key moments. And you felt like that if you would have not walked away with at least a touchdown, everything that could have gone in favor of Oklahoma would have still been in favor of Oklahoma. So the credit where credit's due to make sure that you realize the situation of the moment called for a touchdown, and Latsier Brooks being able to score. That was where everything kind of turned on its axis and everyone said, all right, new ball game, Alabama right back in this thing. Because let's just call a spade a spade. Alabama struggled early on in that matchup. It was entirely in favor of Oklahoma. Bad execution, bad angles of the football, pursuits defensively were all over the place. There was nothing that you could say from an Alabama standpoint that looked like this was a winning formula to where they were going to be able to pull on out. They were going to be able to come back in this matchup. Everything favored what Oklahoma was doing at the right time. They had the third down conversion at the worst time possible. John Mateer, bad punt, short field position, they were able to execute. And Alabama allowed them to be able to take advantages. So what does Alabama do? Alabama goes for it on fourth down. They then get the fourth down stop. They then get a punt return that is a horrendous punt. They're able to go ahead and get a field goal out of it. And then the Xavier Brown interception. Xavier Brown, the way that he was able to read that football and not go toe-to-toe with, I think it was Deion Burks in coverage. That was what you want to see in terms of momentum finally shifting fully in favor of Alabama, and then it is a new ball game. Now, a lot of credit is where credit's due. Alabama did a good job of being able to hold John Mateer into situations where it felt like that momentum was not going to go in favor of Alabama, but still that it was kind of like an even keel game. Alabama very much could have easily said, all right, we're not going to have anything going for us offensively. Bad drops, bad execution in the first half. Ty Simpson was erratic on the first three drives. Things that usually we talk about for what was supposed to be the momentum in this game, it never was. Like, Alabama did a lot of things that absolutely cost them opportunities to be able to score. And I even remember saying in the preview for this episode, make sure that you watch those first three drives, because as long as Alabama is able to get anything going, then you will at least see something go in favor of the Crimson Tide. That wasn't the case, even remotely. Alabama, 3-and-out, 3-and-out, 3-and-out. So what's so interesting about this game more than anything else is that everything that you thought would be in favor of Alabama, or better yet, in favor of Oklahoma, yeah, flip it on its axis. John Mateer throwing for 300 yards. Never would have thought that would have been the case. Alabama winning because of special team miscues in favor of Oklahoma. Very much an issue at that standpoint. All the things that we remember from that first game, it was like a Freaky Friday moment to where everyone decided to shift bodies, put themselves in the position and go, you know what? This is where we have to go ahead and capitalize. And ultimately, that was where Alabama was able to strike. Ty Simpson was not good for the first quarter. He finally started getting a groove. And then when he did, things started to go his way. Finished the night 18-29, 232 yards, 2 big touchdown passes, and the running game was obsolete, except for that one moment where you need that big time run from Daniel Hill. And he ended up getting a 30-yard strike. By the way, the entire rushing total for Alabama tonight, 28 yards. Now, credit where credit's due. Also, negative 22 yards on sacks for Ty Simpson. So if you take that away, almost 90% of the yards came on one strike. One big play was ultimately all it took for Alabama to get anything going on the ground. That's not going to carry you into the next matchup when you face off against Indiana. But also, Indiana is a very, 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 very good run defense. So you don't really have to worry about that one. What you need to worry about is being able to build a rapport and an identity when it comes to passing the football down the field. And that was something Alabama was missing at times throughout the first half. They started getting the momentum. Credit where credit's due to Latsier Brooks stepping on up. Isaiah Horton stepping on up. Ryan Williams did not do much tonight. Jeremy Bernard did not do much tonight. But at the same moment, when you needed a big-time play, how about Jeremy Bernard stepping on up and making probably the biggest catch of the year? Like a moment that nobody could have scripted better. He was able to go ahead and pull the wool over a defensive back size, put themselves into the red zone. And when you need a touchdown and people thought, okay, well, if you get a field goal out of this, at least you'll feel confident. You go ahead and you punch it on in with Daniel Hill in the rushing zone. Alabama did a lot of the little things right. Alabama was able to put themselves in a position where it felt like that momentum, as soon as it shifted toward their side, it very much was on display that they were going to be able to pull away and at least guarantee that they would survive the next round. So you got to give credit where credit's due. Now, can we all agree on one thing together? All right, say it with me. 1, 2, 3. Can we stop the Kalen DeBoer rumors to Michigan? Because I have no idea what it needed to take for people to understand he wasn't leaving for Ann Arbor. Spoke to people earlier this week. He was not going to go take the job. He said it himself on Wednesday. Hey, yeah, you know what? Appreciate all the love and support. I'm not going to be anywhere else but Alabama next year. And now, if you are Michigan, you have to sit back and realize, well, if we were going to hire this guy, it's probably going to take, what would it be? Oh, yeah, another 2 weeks for him to get up to Ann Arbor. And that means that the transfer portal is going to open on up. There's going to be a lot of things that are going on behind closed doors. We need to bring in a lot of transfer portal players. Oh, wait, we can't wait that long. So Kenny Dillingham, Jed Fish, go ahead and debate on who is going to be the next head coach at Michigan and who is going to be a replacement either in Seattle or in Tempe. But regardless, Kalen DeBoer kind of shutting the tide and all the rumors about him potentially leaving. Done deal. Now it's locked on in. He now has an opportunity to continue Alabama's warpath. And let's just call a spade a spade. Alabama at this point needed this win because of a lot of people, even if you don't want to admit it out loud, we're probably wondering what was it going to take for Kalen DeBoer to kind of silence all the critics and ask people, what more do you need to see for me to guarantee that I am the right guy to lead this team? Well, I think that you figured it out. It's pretty simple. I am somebody who understands I have to make up for my past mistakes. I'm able to respond. And now, much like Kirby Smart, who said earlier this past month, I'm going to beat Alabama and finally realize that I'm pretty good at what I do. So now I have been able to exercise that demon. Alabama can say the exact same thing when it comes to Kalen DeBoer underneath Oklahoma. We've been able to figure out what has been the problem. We've been able to put ourselves in this position. And now we are going to respond and be able to say, Oklahoma is not our kryptonite. We have now been able to exercise all of the issues from the outside in. So Alabama moves on. They have a really overall solid game plan after a horrendous first half. Really a 4-quarter game that ended up coming down to critical moments. Alabama delivers. Alabama is able to go ahead and pull away. They get critical stops on 4th down. They put themselves in the position where they're able to make sure that they find their way into the end zone. Good execution. Great highlight plays. A lot of things that you want to clean on up. That way you don't have to worry about it being a big-time issue when you come face off against a team like Indiana in 2 weeks. But regardless, a win's a win. Nobody's going to complain about it. Now for Oklahoma Oklahoma actually started off strong. Like, if you watch the way that they were able to play, they had a good third down conversion. They really do a good job of moving the sticks into the right position. They don't convert on the early drive, so they go ahead and they punt. They get a good field position after a horrendous punt by Alabama, and John Mateer looks the part of John Mateer. He's able to boot, scoot, and boogie like Brooks and Dunn into the end zone, makes a big-time play, puts himself up 7-0. Then Alabama has another 3 and out. They respond. They do another field goal. They put themselves up 10-0. Then Alabama has another 3 and out. Alabama can't do anything to work with it. Good third down conversion. They are driving at this point. Isaiah Tang is sitting in the back of the end zone, and it's 17-0. And Oklahoma has all the momentum going their way. And you think at this point, Oklahoma is going to coast. And this is why I tell people, as much as humanly possible, it's very easy to get lost in the moment. And I would agree, as somebody who has understood this rivalry, as somebody who has understood what the SEC is about, even I said this feels like where Oklahoma is going to take on over, and it is going to be a game that is very lopsided, very much a one-score affair, and the Sooners, congratulations on punching your ticket to the next round of the college football playoff. But here's the beauty about what I learned. Don't tweet it. Like, just don't go out of your way to make sure that it is now out for the public to see and criticize you later on, because Notre Dame fans, Oklahoma fans, national media all decided after we saw Isaiah Tanga find his way into the end zone say, you know what? Now is the perfect time to believe Alabama doesn't belong in the college football playoff. It should be Notre Dame in the postseason. It should be somebody else, whether that be Texas or Vanderbilt. Alabama losing in the SEC title game, this is not where we're supposed to go ahead and see them. And so all the Twitter fingers decided to go ahead and hit send, publish, absolute, no regret. Alabama is going to lose this game. And all it took was a 4th down conversion into the end zone by Latsier Brooks, and momentum went away from everybody on the side of the Sooner Nation and into the Crimson Tide faithful. But all those people that decided to go ahead and tweet on out, oh, well, you know what? Alabama's going to lose this game. Alabama looks like dog crap. Alabama's not going to be able to get the job done. Well, those tweets are out there now. And yours truly, and I say this as somebody who is not an Alabama guy, I say this as somebody who cares about college football, decided to read all of them and go, okay, there's a little green button, retweet, 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 retweet. Because it wasn't that I thought Alabama was going to win the game. It was because of all of you who came up with this prognosticated early indication that Alabama was going to suck. Alabama was not going to get the job done. Alabama was going to look like dog water the rest of the game. You need to be humbled. The beauty about what is the SEC and why we call it the most competitive conference in college football is because if there's not a moment to where you can take your foot off the gas and feel like you were going to be able to pull away. And that was simply the case for Oklahoma. Oklahoma had all the momentum. They were up 17-0. The 4th down conversion happens. They have the muff punt. Well, then you have a horrendous interception where it's very clear that Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer were not on the same page because of the wide receiver completely whipped on a play, and Xavier Brown is now in the end zone, and it's 17-17 going into halftime. You come into halftime, Alabama is able to capitalize. They don't do much. Then you go 3 and out. Alabama is able to punch its way into the end zone. Big Latsier Brooks touchdown, and lo and behold, now you're trailing going into the final 5 minutes of the third quarter. That's not what Oklahoma fans want to see. And at that point, you put more pressure on John Mateer and an offense that wasn't able to run the football efficiently after the first quarter to now be able to pick up momentum. And Alabama's defense started to play a lot better, and Alabama's defense started to figure out what were the ways to win inside when it came against going against the offensive linemen. They were able to put pressure on John Mateer, 5 sacks on the night, and then critical penalties where in a game that clearly after the official ran into an Alabama sideline player 3.5 feet away from the sideline and still called a penalty against Alabama. Hey, let's not give the Zebras any reason to go ahead and call us out. You give them reason to call you out on multiple occasions. Michael Fasusi giving them a 3rd down, whether it was going to be a 3rd and 1 to now a 3rd and 18 because of an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Yep, go ahead and throw that flag up there. How about when Taylor Wine is pushing Cole Adams out of bounds? I didn't think it was a penalty. I didn't think it should have been a penalty. I thought clear as day, it was abundant that he was going after a play and he was pushed into him. You think that the Zebras are going to care about that in that standpoint? No. So just go ahead and put your hands down. Don't give Alabama midfield possession, because guess what happened? Alabama was able to score. So the careless, self-inflicted wounds that you saw from Oklahoma at times, it came back to bite them. And ultimately, Alabama was able to put themselves in a position where they got pressure on the quarterback. They were able to take the running game out of the momentum. Momentum out of the running game. They made John Mateer a one-dimensional quarterback. And ultimately, then you got down to special teams. And special teams has been a blessing for a team like Oklahoma. It has been very, very much a big-time deal. So guess what happened? Do you think Tate Sandell's going to be able to make the kick? Nope. Misses an easy 50-yard kick, and then misses another kick before the end of the regulation. Alabama wins by 10 points. So all little things that go along those lines, they end up costing a team that really was able to play inside of its strengths and ultimately was a reason why it came back to haunt them. Now, Oklahoma had a good season. Let's just call it as is. Oklahoma went 10-2. Oklahoma, with a quarterback that was banged on up, still found a way to be able to go past a very challenging schedule and punch their ticket to the college football playoff. They got to host a playoff game in year 5, underneath a coach that needed to have a great season. That was just it. They had a good year. But ultimately, when you face off against a team that was able to kind of learn from its mistakes and you don't capitalize on your mistakes, this is the result. Alabama learned from its errors against a team like Oklahoma. They did not have turnovers. They were able to go ahead and not have bad special teams playing, and they were able to capitalize on short field positions. What was the thing that we learned about Oklahoma in that first matchup when they faced off against Alabama in Bryant-Denny Stadium? Short field positions, capitalize off turnovers, be able to get points whenever it was possible. That was the game plan for Alabama. So literally all the things that they saw in that first matchup, they were able to take on the road in a place that they lost last year, where it kept them out of the college football playoff. They seek their revenge. And now Alabama is in the very much driver's seat. They can now punch their ticket to go to the next round of the postseason. If things go according to plan, they very much could make it a battle for Indiana. They can now pull the wool over Kirk Cignetti's eyes, and they're now 3 games away from winning a national title. Do I think that Alabama is going to win the national title? Probably not. There's a lot of things that are going to go against them. They still have to face off against either a really good Texas Tech team. They have to face off against a really good Indiana team and probably an Oregon team if they were to go ahead and get that win against Texas Tech later on. But regardless, Alabama is keeping their season alive. They are now making it clear that in the life post Nick Saban, they are in a position to where they can still be the same Alabama as of old. Ty Simpson was good enough. Wide receivers were making plays at the right time. The defense was able to bail them out of trouble. And all those little things that you really need to see, they're available to now pick up the slack, learn from the tape, and put themselves in a position to be able to respond, deliver, and know that even if they're down by 2 scores, they're able to put their way back. As Sam wants to point on out, they outscored Oklahoma 34-7 following a first quarter. That's what you want to see from a team that's able to put themselves now in a spot to where it feels they are going to be able to handle business against anybody that they face off against. Now, as for Oklahoma, where do you go from here? Well, it's an interesting conversation because I don't think that you need to go move off of your head coach. I don't think that Ben Arbuckle's in over his head. I think that you had some really, really bad miscommunication, especially on special teams. Tate Sandell, after winning the most prestigious award for a kicker, yeah, not a good night. And you know what? He's off to the NFL, so the problem, no harm, no foul. You have to figure out what you want to do with John Mateer. That's number one. The other thing you have to figure out is how do you make sure that your offensive line gives him ample protection to be able to deliver strike after strike after strike downfield? Because if that doesn't work out, you're putting yourself behind the sticks to where it feels very much like that things could go awry almost immediately. And you got to be able to fix a lot of things when it comes to the offensive personnel. Bad wide receiver drops at the worst time possible. You were able to make some big time plays, but for every big play, you kind of had a miscommunication. A lot of things went against them. They also were very terrible when it came to the penalties at this time. Worst penalized game when it came to Oklahoma in a hot minute. They were outgained when it came to that position. They 5-4. On top of that, they weren't able to run the football efficiently. There are some things to where you got to be able to kind of put yourself in a position where you got to ask, what are the issues that we need to change instantaneously? If those things happen, then maybe you'll be in a good spot, but I don't know for sure. I simply don't. I think that Oklahoma has some things that are working in their favor. I think there are some things that they got to immediately change. And if they do, then they'll be right back in this conversation next year to at least be 9-3, 10-2, be in the college football playoff hunt. But it doesn't feel that way right now. It feels like that Oklahoma, with what was going wrong with their offense tonight, if it continues on over, it's going to be an issue next season. It's going to be an issue long term. It's not going to be something that you can withstand for the foreseeable future. Now, again, not going to go ahead and blame Oklahoma tonight. You celebrate the fact that you win the college football playoff. But at the same time, you also have to realize you kind of cost yourself a shot to be able to go to the next round, maybe be like Alabama and punch your ticket to the semifinals. So these are your comments before we get on out of here. OU 0-5 in the playoffs. Not looking for them so far. Roll MF Tide, baby. Roll Tide to you. Same man, you were right. Roll motherfucking Tide. Glad that I didn't put money on OU. I guess we own Oklahoma now since the one that matters. All I heard all week is that we own Bama. Again, for Oklahoma fans, you've been able to say for a while you've owned Alabama. And guess what? You have. Because even when Nick Saban was here and it was the Trevor Knight era, Alabama struggled when it came to playing against Oklahoma. They really were not able to find any momentum. They had a lot of self-inflicted wounds, a lot of issues that ultimately came back to bite them in the keister. So, this is one of those moments where if you're an Alabama fan, you could say, we finally have exercised the demons. Much like we talked about with Georgia earlier this year, playing against Alabama in the SEC championship, until Kirby Smart was able to do it on a consistent basis, not in the national championship, you can really say that you own them. Well, guess what happened? Oklahoma can now have to say, yeah, Alabama, you got the better of us in this one matchup. We put ourselves in that position. OU sets all kind of records. First team to go 0-5 in the playoff. First team to blow an 0-17 lead and 2.17 leads. First team to lose a home playoff game. Yeah, so far, doesn't look good for Oklahoma. Not a game plan and not a record that you want to fall behind. OU will watch Texas play the last game of their season after it's over. They will. That's just kind of the reality. I just thought this game was going to be a coin flip. Stinky, at one point, it felt that way. At one moment, right before the muff punt by Oklahoma, it felt like that if they were able to pin Alabama inside their own 20. Alabama's offense hadn't been doing much. They weren't able to run the football. Very one-dimensional as a play design. This was going to be a lopsided affair. Alabama was going to go ahead and get a 3-and-out. They get the ball right back to Oklahoma. And certainly you could say to yourself, well, this is where it all comes together. Well, no, it wasn't. That muff punt did a lot of damage in terms of what it meant for the future of Alabama in this game. So, yeah, I don't disagree with you. Roll Tide. LSU would have beaten both these teams tonight. Mark, you lost to LSU. You lost to Oklahoma and Alabama. You were not going to win this game, even if you did bring in Lane Kiffin to run the show. Extend BV. I still think he earns an extension. I really do. I think that he's done a good job this year. 10-2 in the SEC with one of the toughest schedules. There'll be a lot of people that will point to Oklahoma and say the way they look tonight, they didn't belong in the college football playoff. No, they very much did. In fact, for my opinion, they earned their right because they beat Alabama during the regular season. They beat Tennessee. They beat LSU. They beat Auburn. They beat Michigan. But more specifically, the fact that they were able to get up 17-0, the schedule that they faced off against, and dealing with all the injuries, they belonged in the playoff. That probably leads to where you're going to go ahead and get an extension for BV. Bama's going to whoop IU. If they cannot run the football and they're a one-dimensional offense, they will not. They may win that game, but I don't think that whoop is the right word. I'm honestly very interested in seeing how IU is when they play Bama. It's so hard to see how good these SEC teams are when they're built with talent all over the place. IU, I could easily see being up by 10 points going into halftime. I could see them being trailing by 3. I think that Kirk Cignetti, being who he is as a coach, is going to do a lot of carrying when it comes to that matchup. And if Indiana is as advertised, they should be able to slow down Alabama's rushing attack, which is obsolete already. They should make Alabama very limited when it comes to explosive plays down the field. This is going to come down to who do you trust at quarterback more? Fernando Mendoza, Ty Simpson. And right now it's very easy to say, well, Fernando Mendoza, because if he just won the Heisman Trophy. But Ty Simpson had some really good throws. He did not put the ball in harm's way. He was able to evade as much pressure as possible outside of a few sacks. And he did a good job of extending plays outside the pocket. So if Alabama does those things, they could easily find a way to win that matchup. Alabama going to beat IU. Mark is 100% drunk. I'm sure Mark is. Vandy is better than OU. Cole score prediction between Bama and Indiana. Leaning right now, I'd say Indiana like 24-21, but I need to go back and watch the tape. Need to see what Alabama wasn't able to do in this matchup because there's a lot of things to where it feels like, yeah, they could easily put themselves in that position. Go Canes. I got Miami 28-24. Yeah, I mean, I could see it that way. I very well could at least see Miami being able to win this matchup. I don't think it will, but still. Texas, ND, Vandy over OU. I mean, Texas gets to have the argument. Sandman, you know as well as I do. I was at that game. I'm not going to argue with Texas fans on that one. Texas owned them in that matchup, so therefore, talk as much smack as you want to. All right, we're going to end the live stream here. We will be back tomorrow morning to break down everything that we saw in the matchup between Texas A&M and Miami. But before we get out of here, let me tell you about my friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel.com/SECU. The early line is in favor of Indiana to beat Alabama. It's less than a touchdown line, but still, Indiana in favor of Alabama to win that game in the Rose Bowl come January 1st. If you want to go ahead and play that line, simply go visit FanDuel.com/SECU. Throw down that bet tonight. Do it right now before the line teeters in favor of the Crimson Tide. And when you do that, if you win that bet, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel.com is very fast, simple, easy to use. Same game parlays, player props, whatever tickles your fancy. It's FanDuel.com/SECU. Sign up today. FanDuel.com/SECU, the official betting partner of the NBA, the official friends here at SEC Unfiltered. All right, end the live stream. Alabama wins 34-24. They move on to the next round of the college football playoff. Oklahoma, one and done in the postseason. And for all of us here tonight who are just fans of college football and love the SEC, whether you root for the Longhorns, whether you root for the Crimson Tide, Auburn, or you could even say Oklahoma, we can all agree just right now. And we're not saying that we are fans of each other's teams because we should never say those words. It's disrespectful. It's disgusting. We all know that. The College Football Playoff Committee got it right, and Oklahoma fans can now at least boast and say there was no reason to believe Notre Dame belonged in the College Football Playoff over us because if Alabama was able to deliver and they get a win and they push themselves to the next round. In Oklahoma, they were never going to get penalized because if they beat Alabama during the regular season. So regardless, Notre Dame fans, go ahead and retweet them as much as humanly possible. Freezing Cold Takes is a perfect place to go ahead and visit. And if not them, me at Mr. Cole Thompson, you can go ahead and check me out because guess what? I'm retweeting everything to anybody who said Alabama or Oklahoma did not belong in the college football playoff. Bama, Sooners, they end up getting a great game to start the college football playoff season. Guess what? We got 3 more games tomorrow that have to now meet the expectations, and very well every single one of them could. We will see you tomorrow afternoon after A&M versus Miami, and then we will see you after Ole Miss versus Tulane. More than likely, 2 SEC teams have a shot of winning. I would say that more than likely, they both do win. Until next time, folks, have a good night. Peace.